Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about hammerhead worms, and we'd like to thank Jordan Beach for liking and sharing the podcast. And we'd also like to thank Mike Luoma from the Glow in the Dark radio podcast. Mike reads his science fiction stories on his podcast.
Cool.
Hammerhead worms are a type of flatworm, and fossilized flatworms have been found dating back around 500 million years. Two types of flatworms are being studied and used to help control populations of the giant African snail in Hawaii.
Ah, the gales.
But scientists are evaluating whether the flatworms could be a risk to earthworm populations and native snails.
Tricky. What is a hammerhead worm?
It's a type of flatworm that primarily lives on the surface of the soil. They find shelter under fallen leaves, twigs, rocks, and other organic matter. They like damp environments, and they're found around your house in gardens, flower beds, and landscape areas.
Why is it called a hammerhead?
The head or the front end of some species looks like the head of a hammerhead shark. They're also called shovel-headed worms, because the head looks similar to a round point shovel, but some species will have a smaller, more circular head.
Yeah, they look really weird, don't they?
Yeah, it's interesting looking.
Does it look like a normal worm other than its head?
They look like a worm with a flat, thin body. They're usually thinner than an earthworm. In the U.S., they're commonly 6 to 8 inches long, but they can grow over 12 inches long.
Exciting.
They can be shades of brown, yellow, gray, or reddish-brown with stripes. And on the underside of the worm, there's an area called the creeping sole, which is a series of small hair-like strands that helps it move over surfaces. The area secretes mucus to help it move easier.
Gross.
They can also use the mucus to create a string to lower themselves down from a plant to the ground. It's wild, huh? They have sensory organs under their head to locate prey, and when they make contact with their prey, they wrap themselves around it and start producing a sticky mucus that helps them hold on to their prey.
More mucus.
Right.
Gross.
Some types of hammerhead worms can also produce a toxin that paralyzes the muscles of its prey. Scientists think the toxin is also used to deter predators. The hammerhead worm's mouth is located almost halfway down its body.
That's strange.
When the prey is immobilized, it can extend its throat out of its mouth to secrete digestive enzymes to liquefy the tissue of what it caught. It then sucks up the liquefied tissue. The opening that's used as its mouth is also used to eliminate waste.
I hope nobody's listening to this before going to bed. Or eating. I read they are an invasive species.
Yeah, they've been on the news a lot lately as a new invasive species, but they've actually been in the U.S. for quite a while. The first hammerhead worms were found in the early 1900s. Entomologists think they were probably unintentionally imported from Asia in soil or potted plants.
Are states worried about them, like the spotted lanternfly?
They're being studied to see how much impact they might have on the ecology because they feed on earthworms, slugs, snails, insects, and insect larvae. Some scientists are worried because they don't have any natural predators. They think they might be able to overpopulate areas, reducing earthworms, slugs, and snails, which could disrupt the local ecosystem.
Okay. What is the hammerhead worm's life cycle?
Hammerhead worms have both male and female organs. During mating, two worms will exchange sperm, and after a few days they lay their eggs. The eggs are in a cocoon to help protect them. The new worms will hatch after a few weeks. And not only is it easier for hammerhead worms to mate because they have both reproductive organs, they can reproduce by fragmentation.
What's that?
So this is when a worm breaks off the end of its body, and that piece will grow into a new hammerhead worm, and that only takes 7 to 10 days.
Yuck.
Amazing, huh? So if you're trying to get rid of hammerhead worms, you don't want to cut it in half with a shovel. Both ends will grow into a worm.
Because when I was doing the research for this episode, everything said don't cut it in half. And I'm like, why?
It's interesting.
That's crazy.
Well, what's crazy is even a large section of the middle without the head or the tail can regrow into a new worm.
Just the mouth?
Yeah, it's amazing. The Department of Entomology at Virginia Tech says fragmentation is the primary way many hammerhead worms reproduce. The National Cancer Institute has a research team studying how flatworms like the hammerhead worm regenerate to see if one day it could lead to treatments for cancer or how to stimulate human cells to regrow lost limbs or damaged organs.
Interesting.
Doctors at the University of Pittsburgh have developed a powder made of animal collagen and material that stimulates cell growth to regrow fingertips that have been cut off. They've also been able to help some patients regrow 30 to 40% of the muscle lost after a catastrophic injury.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Where are hammerhead worms found in the U.S.?
According to the National Invasive Species Information Center,
Do you make some of these things up?
currently they're mostly found in the southeast, along the east coast, and in California. Other states include Florida, Georgia, Virginia, New Jersey, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arizona.
Okay. Are hammerhead worms harmful for gardens or crops?
Virginia Tech says there's no evidence to suggest they're particularly harmful for gardens or they'll have an ecological effect on earthworm populations, but scientists are studying the long-term impact.
So I don't know.
Right, exactly. Most of the university extension services aren't asking for people who find a hammerhead worm to report it, but you can contact your local agricultural extension office and see if they're keeping track of hammerhead worms.
Okay.
The Texas Invasive Species Institute requests people submit a picture and the location if you find one, so they can track the spread.
Should you touch a hammerhead worm? I know I'm not going to.
The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection says hammerhead worms that produce a neurotoxin can cause skin irritation in humans. The effect can be worse if you get the mucus in your eyes, a cut, or in your mouth. The worms may carry parasitic nematodes.
So gross.
Pennsylvania State University says the risk from exposure to the chemicals from a hammerhead worm's mucus is probably low, but it's still unknown.
And it's still mucus, by the way.
So always wear disposable gloves if you're handling the worms. And some top-rated disposable gloves are from Venom Steel. That's Venom, capital Steel, Amex, Ammex, and Kimberly-Clark, Kimberly, capital Clark.
What type of disposable glove?
The main types are nitrile, latex, and vinyl. Nitrile gloves are durable and resistant to chemicals, punctures, and tears. They're good for projects around the house.
Right.
Latex gloves are very flexible and they give good tactile sensitivity, but some people have an allergic reaction to latex.
Bummer.
Vinyl gloves are low cost, but they're going to be less durable than nitrile or latex.
Okay. Are hammerhead worms harmful to pets?
The Department of Agriculture says pets can get sick if they consume the worms. The toxins can cause intestinal issues and vomiting. The Director of Research and Education of the Texas Invasive Species Institute says if you suspect a child has ingested a worm, call Poison Control or 911 and ask for advice. The poison control number is 1-800-222-1222, and they're available 24 hours a day. And that's a great number to have available if you have kids or you care for older adults.
Yeah. Everyone should have it in their phone.
Yeah.
What should you do if you see a hammerhead worm?
Texas A&M University and the University of Maryland says if you see a hammerhead worm, remove it and dispose of it.
How do you get rid of a hammerhead worm?
North Carolina University recommends picking up hammerhead worms with tweezers or by hand with disposable gloves on, putting them in a bag that can be sealed, and pouring some rubbing alcohol on them to kill the worms. Or you can put them into your freezer to kill them.
Gross. I don't want that in my freezer.
The Texas Invasive Species Institute says hammerhead worms can be sprayed with vinegar or a combination of vinegar and citrus oil to kill them. Placing them in a Ziploc bag with vinegar or salt will ensure they won't crawl away, and it's an easy way to dispose of them.
Okay.
They say continuous removal of these invasive flatworms are necessary for the protection of naturalized earthworm populations. And when you're handling live flatworms, use gloves, paper towels, or a stick. Wash your hands thoroughly if you come in contact with the worms, or use a hand sanitizer.
Okay.
Mississippi University says use disposable gloves and put them in a bag and sprinkle salt on them. Virginia Tech University says you can use salt on the worms to kill them, but don't spread the salt on the ground because it harms vegetation.
Right.
Put the worms in a bag or container that can be sealed, like a used glass jar.
How many times do you think I said gross in this episode?
A lot.
Do you have anything else to add?
If you find hammerhead worms around your home and you want to get rid of them, don't cut them in half with your shovel. Book 18 should be back from the editor next week, so we should be publishing it soon on Amazon. We'll record a podcast about the chapters and when we're going to set up a promotion so you can download a free copy.
Exciting. Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 17 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.
Different.